So far this morning, Jimmy has called me dear and David a psychopath. So we're going to start the show like that.
Dave is a psychopath.
Dave is a psychopath,
new?
he says.
He's afraid of tacos. That's what I said that in response to. I said, you're a psychopath if you haven't eaten a taco yet.
Still have not had a taco. Just waiting for the right moment.
We should do a show on like how we choose the hills that we're going to die on. Because that's a strange hill to die on, in my opinion. But
I didn't realize it until I was an adult and people started telling me that was weird. And then it just became this thing that I identified with.
Yeah.
And so I stuck with it. I mean, I'll eat a taco, but it's going to take a lot of money at this point. And the older I get, the more money I'm going to need.
Right.
He's going to be on his deathbed and be like, one of the things I regret is never having a taco, and it will be too late because you won't have any teeth and like you can't digest the taco anymore.
So good. Get him a soft one.
That's going to be a bummer. Anyway, how's it going? What's new?
I'm been busy trying to get. Now we have a hard out. Taylor and I have been trying to go on a road trip since the beginning of August. And now we finally established the hard out, and that's going to be next week. We're going to go, and we're going to be gone for about 10 to 12 days, maybe 14 days. We're going to drive out west. We have a couple of hotels, or rather like cabins and stuff booked to spend various nights here and there. We're going to travel with our Oregon travel trailer on the back of the car and sleep and camp in it. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun. I'm excited. But I've been doing the mad dash, and so has she, to get some work done. So it's off of our consciousness, and we can deliver. And I've been busy with the travel trailer, and I'm working on a couple of little videos here and there in the background. But the travel trailer, the one that is being built for, it's going to be for a wine company. It's going to be used as a launch for a wine company. It's funny. A lot of people keep asking me, whatever happened with Bullet Bourbon? How come you don't work for Bullet Bourbon anymore? This is the same client as Bullet Bourbon. It's just all the Bullet Bourbon stuff is a media PR company that hires me to make all this, the physical stuff that goes along with media and PR. And because of the trailers that we all made last year, we made about 50 of those trailers leading into October a year ago, me and my team here. Because of those, we got this real travel trailer gig. Those were all fake displays. So the same media marketing company got this gig and gave it to me. So I am, in a sense, working for the same exact people. Just this time the client isn't Bullet. It's a wine company whose name actually I don't even know. It's they're going to launch a new product. Like they have some, I don't know, kind of like it's from what I gather, it's kind of like a Truly or something like that. But this trailer, I'm going to make part one, the video for my Lincoln Electric video that they need to publish inside ARC magazine. So that's going to be part one. So if I can get all the pieces done for the exterior, and I'll call that part one, and then I'll build out the interior when we get back. By the way, the timeline went from, I think, May 1st to June 1st. That was all right while I was working on the show. I was like, I'll do it after work. Thank God. I would have died. I wouldn't have been able to make it. Crazy. I wouldn't have been able to do it. I would have just had to say, look, I admit defeat. I'm sorry. Here's your money back. But they moved the deadline first from May, then to June, and then from June to October 1st. And so I'm thinking I'm not going to have enough time to get it done. I won't. And so I called him. I was like, am I going to deliver this thing to you guys October 1st? And then it's just going to sit in a warehouse for 3 months before you first market? And he goes, yep. I was like, so can I have those few months? He said, sure. So I have till January 1st now.
Awesome.
So I said, great. Because he goes, I'm just giving you a deadline because I thought you needed it. I was like, I wish you would have told me that. But at the end of the day, I'm glad he did, because I'm as far as I am along now. And my deadline for this Lincoln video would be early September. So I think I'll be able to edit on the road, which is fine because Taylor won't let me drive. So I could sit in the passenger seat and edit.
We can't just blow by that.
No.
That's our topic for today.
No.
Just kidding.
I'm not allowed to drive, and we're not allowed to go use my car anytime we do anything, because she gets car sick and she doesn't like the way my car smells. So no matter what, we take her car. She's like, let's take your car. I'm like, nope. Let's take your car. Nope. I don't want, nope. She doesn't like the smell of the trees. Dave, remember you had that issue with that tree company?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
Their
they
lawyers
would
are
love
tough.
me.
Yeah.
they would love me because I buy them all the time. And my inside of my car smells like a like that. Several different flavors mixed together. And Taylor gets in my car. She immediately just pulls them off of the rear view and throws them right out the window. She's like, these are going to make me sick. And the way you're driving is going to make me sick. And this is going to make me sick. I'm like, all right, then you just drive your car wherever we go. And her car smells like a horse barn stall because she's a horse person.
Wow.
She's like, my car.
That's a new flavor of air freshener.
She goes, my car doesn't smell. I'm like, okay.
Maybe we should have her on, and then the topic of today's podcast is just you guys working things out about your cars.
Oh no, that would be a fun one. It would be a fun one.
Yeah, man,
it would be a fun one. No, so we drive in her horse barn stall everywhere we go, which is fine. I don't mind the smell of horse barn stalls. It's actually kind of very nostalgic.
Do you have any plans on making videos while you're out? I kind of like the idea of a challenge of being forced to make a video away from home.
I'll probably use this as a jumping off point to make a vlog again, just because of the beauty. We're going to look at some really big national sites. I think we're going to pass through Yellowstone, Grand Tetons, and Devil's Tower, all that kind of stuff. We're just going to do like the American road trip, look at some cool stuff.
Is there time to stop at junkyards and thrift stores and all that fun stuff? Craigslisting across the country.
Well, he's obviously bringing a trailer behind the Oregon trailer. Like he has a caravan to bring back tools, right?
No, I don't think so. This is just a departure from all that. If we happen upon, I mean, one thing I would like is just some old Western stuff, because I'm a wannabe cowboy. So occasionally, like if we do stop at some like cowboy memorabilia stuff, I'll buy that. That's really kind of the only thing I'm looking forward to finding. Just
like what?
Like either like an old pistol or parts of old cowboy gear, like, I don't know, maybe like a rusted rifle, something that I could play with, something like that kind of stuff. Or a cool old pair of cowboy boots. I mean, years ago when Taylor and I drove through Wyoming, we stopped in a little thrift shop and I bought a pair of old cowboy boots and I wore them for like the next 2 years until like the seams literally came apart. Now they're hanging on the wall, but they were a pair of used boots. So that type of stuff, just cool old memorabilia. Find myself I need a new cowboy hat because the cowboy hat I have was like packed in a box and it's all flattened out. Looks like an old crumpled up top hat. So something like that. I don't know. Whatever floats my boat. I'll find something. But that's going to be exciting to go. And then, like I said, it's just putting a fire under my butt to get a couple things tidied up and done. And then there's a couple things I'm just going to have to, I have a couple of ad clients. I just have to say, if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to have to wait until I get back. And, you got to do what you got to do. There's only so much water your cup can hold. And I'm at that point now where I have to decide what I'm going to let spill. Pick it up later.
Cool. Right on. Well, David, what have you been up to?
So, first of all, for my viewers, I want a little behind the scenes of the video that's coming out on Friday. I got a sponsorship for an underwear company. And
oh boy,
there was no request to show myself in the underwear. Just barely even gave me talking points. It's like do what you want. And so I put a thing out on my Facebook to my local friends, like, does anybody who's fit want to pretend to be me? And so I found somebody who's nice and skinny, a little toned, wears my size, but in way better shape. And so it just cuts to this clip of this guy who's fit for just a brief second.
Do we do some CGI? Do we see your head on his body?
Well,
deep fake there.
Yeah, the talking points are my shoulders up, and then it cuts to him down. So I have a red shirt on. So does he, but his is cut at like a midriff shirt. So,
oh man,
it's not a funny tone at all. It's just like those who know would be like, wait, that wasn't David. So just a little behind the scenes for my viewers.
Really funny.
It would be awesome if the two of you had like completely different skin tones, where it was just dead obvious that it was a different person, but you played it off as yourself.
Yeah, a very subtle thing that maybe some people will notice is he is oiled with some baby oil, so he's kind of shiny. So the sponsor hasn't even approved it yet. They're gonna. I just sent it to him today.
There's some sawdust on there.
Yeah, well, he is holding a circular saw, so it's in the shop. It's supposed to be me. Yeah.
I don't know why it's so funny.
So, okay, you should like just write down all the details of that day that you shot that stuff. And when people ask you what you do for a living, let me tell you about one of my wow.
So I'm trying to get that toolbox that I talked about finished up for Friday. I've been talking about it for like 4 weeks. It's not that big of a project. It's just I've been distracted with other projects. But today I'm working on the cantilevered drawers in there, and I think I got it figured out. So I'm putting that together today. And then I'm also working on a neon sign video. So some LED neon strips. And I think in the video we're going to do 4 different ways to make it. So if you're a woodworker, you could do it this way with a router. If you're not a woodworker, you could do it this way. And that's another little video. And then maybe on Monday or Tuesday, I'll start the picture frame project. So we shot expired film a couple months ago, and there's 10 prints that came out. And I want to make a frame to hold 10 prints. But instead of using a mat to separate all the prints, I want the frame to separate different prints. So it's going to be this funky shape with all these, dozens of little small pieces in between all the pictures, and it's going to be one big massive kind of art piece type thing. So working on that.
Well, for me, we actually don't have a video coming out this week. We, for the past several weeks, have been, right up against the finishing something to just get it out in time or a little bit late. And usually if there's a month that has 5 Thursdays, we'll skip one. At least. And so next month has 5 Thursdays, and we decided to go ahead and skip now so that we can start to get ahead and not always be, right up against the line. So we're skipping this week, but we have next week's project done, and it's in edit right now, and it turned out super cool. It's at Anthony's house. It's the first thing we've done over there.
Anthony's shaking his head in the background.
Yeah. I think they're really happy with it. But so we did that, and we're already working on, I've been working on the Carmagia some and working on the next project after that. So that's kind of what we're into.
I have a question.
Nothing terribly new. Yes.
Was it last week? Did we talk about Derek's video about clickbait and changing thumbnails? We did. Mm-hmm. Did you changed your thumbnail for the window video, didn't you?
We did. We had 3 or 4 versions of the thumbnail and a couple of different title versions. Mm-hmm. And so we watched, based on how he went about it in that video, we kind of watched and switched it around. I don't know that we saw any of them really stood out as a front runner, but we were just kind of changing it to see what would happen.
Yeah.
But the video's done better than I expected anyway, so it's great. I'm not sure if that has to do with the changing or just what the video was about.
I personally have not made 2 or 3 thumbnails ready to go and then swapped them out to see which one did better. I have many times, like, this video is not doing well, swapped up the thumbnail, and then would see an immediate increase in views. So,
we usually have at least two going into it. Just try to have a backup just in case we can see that one doesn't hit at all. But a lot of times it's just, I don't know if everybody has this thing, but a lot of times with thumbnails, it's difficult for us to find more than one way to show the thing. Especially if it's a big kind of room scale renovation or, like those windows where we want to show both of the windows and that's an entire wall's worth of image. So sometimes it's kind of hard to come up with multiple shots to even have an alternate thumbnail to put in there. But that's just one of the things that we always have to try to figure out ahead of time, like what's going to be useful when we get to actually building those thumbnails, what images. But yeah, so we're kind of trying to get ahead a little bit. There's just a bunch of stuff going on in the background as well that hopefully I'll be able to talk about soon. But yeah, I guess that's kind of what's new with us. I've been sitting here while you guys were talking. I was listening, but I was also looking around for something to recommend today. I have not watched anything new in months. Like, I'm looking back through my YouTube subscription, my history, and like, I'm just not finding anything new. Do you guys have that problem? Do you go through times where you just nothing new sticks out, or you're just not running into anything new, or are you constantly finding new interesting things on YouTube?
Sort of, but I definitely use the homepage more than the subscription page. I think I go to that because I'm looking for new things, but I have so many weird interests, and all these new ones, they don't really relate to the listeners of this podcast. So nobody's going to care about a drum machine or an MPC video that I saw. So my pick this week is actually somebody I've recommended, that we've all recommended multiple times before, because I don't have anything interesting. So
yeah, it's kind of an issue. Like, I mean, it's not an issue in that I feel like I'm missing out on things. It's just when it comes to trying to pass on something cool and new, I just don't really come in contact with a lot of new content because I don't really watch a ton. And I think if I were, like you're saying, watching a bunch of different types of things, it would be feeding me more recommendations, but I just don't really spend that much time watching video. So anyway, so we did have a topic today. You want to take that, David? Because it was your idea.
Sure. I think last week I mentioned the imposter syndrome, which I feel quite a bit. I don't even think I heard that term until like 5 or 6 years ago when we went to that Inventables thing in Chicago. I forget the name of that event. We went to ORD camp, yeah. And every year they were like, "Y'all belong here. You know, you should feel like it. Don't. You know, you belong here." And I was just like, "Okay," but there's some really smart people here.
Walking around ORD camp the entire time, and it's funny. No matter who you spoke to, you're like, I don't know how I ended up here. I'm not really sure why I'm here. Yeah. Like, you could be talking to somebody, you look at them and you're like, oh, they must know like the organizers really well. And you're like, I don't even know them. Like, I met them once. I don't know. I don't even know why I'm here. And meanwhile, everyone's walking around doing the same thing. But at the same time, they're trying to enjoy it and getting to know people. And almost by accident, it turns into a really cool event, unconsciously.
So a couple of pieces of context here. So, anybody who's listening who doesn't know what we're talking about. One, imposter syndrome is this kind of feeling you get when you're doubting your abilities, or you feel like you're a fraud, like, people think you're something that you're not. And I mean, everybody goes through this in every different, tons of different ways all the time. But that's what imposter syndrome is. It's not like a actual syndrome. It's just a feeling you get when you realize that you're kind of out of your depth. You feel like you shouldn't, you don't deserve to be somewhere or have recognition for something. This thing that they're talking about, we went to this kind of invite only event in Chicago a few times, and it's they invite people of all different types. And so like, it's when Jimmy says that, it's difficult for us to let you know exactly who you're coming in contact with. But I remember at one point in about a 5-minute window, I went from talking to a lady who is an astrophysicist, to a lady who is a beekeeper, to the guy that started Exploding Kittens, the game company. And then a few minutes later, I was sitting down next to a random person, and he asked me what I did, and started telling him about the arcade cabinet that I was building. And then he was nodding and smiling and being really kind and asking me questions. And then I asked him what he did, and he said, "Oh, I own this company. I don't remember the name of it. We make arcade cabinets here in Chicago, and we make the Jurassic Park game that everybody's known for the past whatever years." And I'm like, ugh. And I was just like sinking down in my seat, like, oh, I'm talking about arcades. Like, I know what I'm talking about. This dude's been running this business for years and years and years. So that environment, you shouldn't have imposter syndrome, but it's so natural because you're surrounded by people who are just the top of the top of all sorts of things, What's funny, though, is in that situation, and in a lot of those kind of, event situations, you may be surrounded by people who are the top in their thing, but they're not the top in your thing. Or, from their perspective, you're the one that's like, oh, you do that? That's crazy. And I watched that with both of you guys in that same situation. Jimmy would do a talk about, he would just start designing something on a whiteboard in front of people. And you could see people are just like, what is happening right now? How is he coming up with these ideas and sketching out these products and stuff right off the top of his head? And these are coming from famous authors and like, you know, physicists and stuff who just happen to be wandering into this room. So that's the context of what we're talking about when you.
Yeah, we did that a few years in a row.
Yeah.
And even this podcast, you know, maybe Bob is working on his R2D2, which is this really complicated thing. And it's a long, huge project that takes many months. And then Jimmy's working on some big crazy thing like, oh, I that's way outside of what I would ever do. And I'm like, hey guys, I made a cutting board. And like sometimes I feel that way just on this podcast, like, oh, I made this little crafty thing, and which doesn't compare to the big projects you guys are working on. But it's what I choose to do. But I definitely feel it here on the podcast sometimes. I'm
definitely jealous of your go-kart. your go-kart passion. I've been wanting to build and make a go-kart for years, and I have to carve out the time, and you know, and then I'm a little intimidated by some of the mechanical stuff that I know I could figure out, but it's not perfectly clear to me. So I get a little nervous, and it's what kind of becomes the holdup. But I'm unconscious of that until I stop and think, like, why am I not doing this? So there's these little break links, and this, I know I can figure it out. I just can't see it clearly, so I just avoid it. That's kind of what I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we all probably have that same, like I was saying about that event, we all have it here as well. Because, you know, David, you may have that response to R2D2 or some whatever that one of us is working on, but I have that same response to the amount of detail that you can put into one of your projects. Some woodwork, like the toolbox thing that you're working on, I can't wait to see that because I know what goes into making that thing that you're making. And I don't feel confident that I could pull it off, which is funny, you know? I mean, it's just a different, I feel inadequate or like a fraud in a different way, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really super common thing to feel around other people like you just don't, you know, measure up, or like they have some expectation of you that you can't fulfill on. I know for me, it is. And I feel it most when I'm more engaged in a community. So like when we go to an event, you know, when you go to Workbench Con and you're surrounded by all these people who do all these awesome things, that's when I feel that feeling more than when I'm by myself in the shop. Because it's like when I'm by myself with something to do, I know what my limitations are. I know what my skill is. I know what I'm comfortable with, what I have at my disposal. And so I don't feel like I'm faking anything because I know all of the tools, like everything is laid out there before me. But then when you go to an event or you're in a conversation, maybe it's even online, I think it comes down to other people, you not really knowing how other people perceive you, or not feeling that it's worthwhile. And that is heightened when you're in conversation or up against someone in real life, you know, and they're talking about what they do. And I don't know. Do you guys feel that when you're by yourself? Or is it?
No, well, it's funny because there are times when I'm like at an event and I think to myself, I'm trying to talk to somebody. Oh, what do you do? What do you do? And then sometimes I realize I'm like, he's probably thinking, who let this guy in here? You know, it's like, why does he think he should be in here? I certainly have that feeling a lot. You know, when I'm at like a bigger, you know, when you're at a bigger construct, like when you go to Fab Tech, for instance, like you think you're like some hotshot YouTube welder or whatever, and you go to Fab Tech and you're meeting the best of the best of the best. And, you know, they don't even, like, these guys don't even know what YouTube is. You know, it's pretty incredible. And it just reminds me that there's so much more to learn. And when I think that you know, I never ever think I'm done learning, but just remind you that there's so much more to learn and so many more resources and places and people to be in touch with. When you think, you know, like you're like, oh, I'm doing pretty good. And then you realize like how much you're missing and how much you really do need to learn. And that's kind of what I feel when I go to something like, sorry, my phone rang. That's the type of stuff I feel when I'm at like an event like that. I just think I'm like, wow, I'm like a tiny little fish in a giant pond. I'm not at all, you know, I'm not at all like as big as I might perceive myself or somebody might perceive me. Like my parents would think like, oh my God, you're like the king of YouTube. I'm like, no, not at all. But that's just a reminder that there's just such a bigger place. I'm talking specifically Metal Fab because that place is giant, and yeah, it just reminds me that there's so much more to learn. And then my personal experience lately with imposter syndrome kind of comes in the car business. Lately, I've been playing around a lot with cars, and because I'm not really good at tuning a car when it comes to the carburetor or the timing, I feel like I should not know anything about a car. Like when I meet a real car guy, like Derek from Vice Grip Garage, or a couple of my personal friends that really understand cars, they don't care about anything about the bodywork. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, cool." They go right for the motor, and like they know exactly how to handle the motor. Me, I'm the opposite. I'm like, "Oh, could you fix my motor? I want to just do the pretty stuff." That's how I feel. So I think like, who am I to make car videos, or who am I to like experiment with cars when all I'm really dealing with is like the cosmetics? Because when it comes to the engine, you talk to these guys, they're like, "Oh, put a 496, let's switch it out to a 12-bolt reel." Like, I don't understand any of that stuff. And just recently, I'm going to restore this old Chevy truck that I talked about last week. I thought for a minute, let me play with the transmission. Then I'm like, that doesn't float my boat. I'm not going to fake it. I'm going to just have someone fix it. And then I'm going to be in front of my friend's garage down the block and say, "Hey, here I am at Whitbeck's garage. He just changed the transmission. Maybe I'll get a couple of clips of him doing the transmission." I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to fake it. Because I just don't know at all what I'm doing. And I don't want to leave a bolt in the transmission and spend $2,000 to have it repaired and install it incorrectly. I just don't have the experience. And so, I mean, I do know my limitations, but occasionally when I do car stuff, and I'm around real car guys, I'm always like, "Oh God, he's going to," and I'll go like, "Hey, could you tell me why it makes a little dingy sound over here?" I feel like a helpless woman on the side of the road with a flat tire. But
sometimes when I'm feeling that, I don't know how to get over that in that particular moment. So you mentioned the go-kart stuff, and now I build my own motors. But a year and a half ago, I didn't know a thing about motors. And these little motors, something goes wrong all the time. And so if it's sputtering or surging or it's not working right, I feel I felt like I don't know anything, and I'm afraid to even ask for help because who's this new guy? And I don't know how to get over that uncomfortableness in that moment. And it goes back to playing in bands. Like, I never became a great guitar player. And I am not a great guitar player. I can play rhythm, but you ask me to play it solo and I'll fumble all over the place. But like starting a new band, I'm like, I'm not as good as these other people. And I don't know how to get over that. And it takes a while to get comfortable around these other people. But even like the go-kart motor thing, like I'll just keep it at that time. I would keep it to myself and then go home and Google it. So I didn't feel like an idiot compared to these other people.
Yeah. I mean, do you get that feeling at all when you're by yourself? If you're like making a video, maybe where there's like a future audience, there's a future interaction with people. Do you get that feeling? Oh, sure.
I certainly will edit out certain things. Like I'll just avoid, like I've talked about it with the trailer. I feel total imposter syndrome. I'm making this trailer up as I go. I'm just using practical knowledge, practical solutions to things that I think are probably right. But when this video comes out, I'm going to get hammered. People are like, "You're an idiot. You have no idea what you're doing. You never built a trailer before." I'll be like, "Yeah, I never did." But here it is. It's existing. It's in front of you. So I'm a little nervous. And that's why I've kind of been a little bit gun shy to show it, because I feel like it certainly feel imposter syndrome. Who am I to make a trailer? You don't know what you're doing. You never worked in a trailer company making trailers. My friends over at Oregon Trailers delivered this trailer to me. It's like incredibly seamless. I can't even like figure out how to reverse engineer some of the stuff they did on it. It's beautiful. And so when I'm looking at the one I'm making, thank God they wanted to kind of look 60s and a little bit, old school, because I can just do simple trim. We're just gluing sheets on, and once the glue dries, then we'll put pop rivets in it, just so we can keep the process moving along. Me and Ryan has been helping me on this whole thing. I'm certainly nervous about releasing the video on this, because everyone's going to like, it's going to fall off. I'm going to hear all that stuff, but whatever, life moves on,
Yeah. So in regard to that, like doing something is not going to be the absolute correct way to do it, but you're using what you have at your disposal, your knowledge and stuff, knowing that you're going to get that feedback. There's a weird line, and I think I've probably gone past this line multiple times, where I'm trying to let people know that I don't have all the answers. I'm figuring this out. I'm giving it a shot, and I'm not claiming to be like the expert. I'm not showing you the way to do it. I'm showing you the way I'm doing it as a step, right?
Right.
And so I think sometimes I've overstepped that a little bit and like made excuses for what I'm going to do before I do it. But that's a weird line to toe, knowing the feedback that you're going to get, but also, and I've said this before, but I think that one of the perceptions about published media still is that there's authority behind it. You know, when we were kids, if you got a book deal, that's because you had authority on the subject. If you were on TV, that's because you had authority and you got there for a
really
reason.
Good point. A really good point.
If you got an album, that's because you were good enough to get an album out. But now anybody can do any of those things from their basement by themselves. That's right. Any Yahoo can write 3 books. I'm just kidding. Like all of those things can be done from an inexpensive computer by yourself in your basement. It takes no authority to publish media anymore. And that's not a bad thing, but I think the perception that because something is published, it has authority, is still there in people's minds. So when they watch a YouTube video, they think, well, this person obviously thinks they're authoritative enough to put this out there into the world. And I think trying to counteract that, but not overstep that, is pretty important. You know, trying to say, I'm learning here without, without being like apologetic about your mistakes. Like there's a weird line in there that I'm not really great at finding.
You're reminding me of a funny family circumstance. So my brother Joseph is my older brother. He's 5 years older than me. And his very best friend he grew up with, crazy, insanely talented mechanic. We like our friend Billy is like basically like one of my older brothers. He grew up with my brother from like the age of 5. They still talk on the phone like little girls. He lives in Hawaii. Joey lives in New York. And they talk all the time. And since I've become famous online, Billy complains to my brother. He goes, Jimmy doesn't know what he's doing. Jimmy doesn't know how to weld. Why is he out there teaching the world how to weld? He has no idea what he's doing. And Joey says, he's not teaching welding. He's just showing you the things he makes. He goes, he's nothing special. He tells this to Joey all the time. and he's like, who does he think he is? I watched his latest video. Why does he think he's special? Like all he's doing is putting a camera on himself. He has no idea what he's doing. And in a way, it sounds to me like he's a little jealous that he's not getting the recognition because he is an excellent welder. He's an excellent mechanic, but he has no idea which end of an iPhone to hold. So I tell Joey to tell him, I'm like, tell him I don't know what I'm doing. I do know how to maybe make a video. I think I do. I said, and that's what I'm doing. I'm making videos of what I do to encourage other not knowers how to do stuff. I'm a not knower that got past first base. I could teach other not knowers how to get past first base. And that's what I'm doing. I'm not up there saying, this is the best weld I've ever seen on the internet. I never ever said that. I never ever said that I'm a master craftsman, which I sometimes get labeled, which is really annoying. I just did an interview article with a magazine and they're like, so you're a master craftsman. I'm like, no, let's get this straight. I am not a master at anything. I was like, maybe I'm a master at writing my logo on stuff. That's the only thing I will take a master title for. But I'm not a master. I never said I was. You know, when people in some of the comments like, who are you to say you're this? And Billy is the epitome of that. And he complains to my brother. My brother will call. He's like, I got something funny to tell you. So he'll text me and I call him. He's like, so Billy saw your latest video and he was screaming to me about how bad it was. I'm like, okay. He just tell him to pick up a camera and teach the world what I did wrong. I would love for him to do a response video to anything I've done. He's like notoriously angry. Like he's gone to anger management classes his whole life. This guy, he's been in trouble with the law a lot. So him watching me try and be the authority on welding, which I'm not claiming to be. I'm just filming myself, gets him so mad. That'd be fun. And that's a personal family friend. And I haven't personally spoken to him about this. This kicked up about 6-8 months ago. So I haven't talked to him about it. But Joey always laughs when we talk. He tells me like the Billy report on him watching my YouTube videos.
Yeah, I think like it can be really easy to, like I was saying, you know, to overstep and apologize for your stuff or be completely arrogant and just be like, yeah, what I'm doing is good. It's fine. It's like, whatever. I don't care what you think. There is a middle ground there of being thoughtful about, I'm trying something and like, maybe I didn't get it right, but I'm learning. And I think the attitude of being a forever learner says a lot about your place and what you're trying to project and what, you think other people are going to think about you. And I mean, it does kind of get you off the hook from feeling like you need to be great at something. If you're learning, then you don't need to be great. That's the point of the learning thing. And if you show other people that you're learning, they shouldn't have the expectation that you know it all already, right? So I've talked recently about this channel. It's just called CT. I guess that's the guy's name. I don't really know anything about him, but he works on cars. And he's right now working on a car Magia. And so I found that he's working on this car Magia, and he's making videos very quickly about it. Like every couple of days, he's taking the body off and taking the floor pans out and painting and all this stuff. But the cool thing, he obviously knows cars because he's talking about it, and he seems to move through the tooling like he knows what he's doing. But then often he's like, well, this is the first time I've ever done this. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That feels a little bit better. Because he's not scared of it. He's moving through it, but he's not claiming to know what he's doing. In fact, he, the other day, bought these brand new floor pans for the Volkswagen, and they come primed with like a black primer on them. And he got them fit and everything, and then stripped all the primer off of them to re-primer them. And I thought, oh, that seems odd. Like, I guess there's something I don't know about that because I don't know any of this stuff. So, okay, I'm just watching. Like, I'm, along for the ride to see why he did that. What's the point? Maybe the primer that comes on, it's so terrible out of the factory or whatever. And in the next video, he said, well, you guys all let me know that I did way more work than I needed to. The primer that was on there was good enough. And so that's not a big deal, but it said something to me about me and about him. Because he has a channel that he does a lot of car work, I assumed that he knew exactly what he's doing and there was some big logical reason behind a thing, and he's figuring it out just like I am. So I put an expectation of authority on him that I shouldn't have, and that's on me. But also, he was just willing to listen to feedback from people and oh, well, I did something I didn't really need to do. Now I know. And he moved on. That was it. He didn't feel bad about it, didn't apologize for it. He just learned. And I think that was a really good example of, you can take feedback and not feel like you're less or you're bad because you don't have the knowledge yet. Like he just internalized it and now he knows and he's moving on. And I think that's a really good way to do it. Depending on your personality, that may be easier or more difficult to ask for that. Because I think the imposter syndrome thing is being afraid to let people know that you don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? It's I don't want to let people realize that I don't really have any idea why I'm here or what I'm doing. It's not standing up and being like, all right, everybody, I don't know what I'm doing. It's not that.
You reminded me of a funny experience that just happened because I could still smell the diesel on my shoes. So last 3 nights ago, I'm with Taylor and we're at the big black barn that we both have been working in. I was like, do you smell diesel fuel? She's like, no, I don't smell. I was like, why do I smell diesel fuel? Because there's no diesel related objects around here. And I smell just like it's because we have a couple pieces of equipment to take diesel. And I forgot that I had parked the backhoe in a different part of the yard because we have all these big giant high trees and weeds. And I completely forgot I put it there. I always expect it in a different place. Anyway, long story short, it was 30 feet away from me in the weeds. I forgot I had put it there. And so last night I'm walking down the long driveway to the black barn and I walk past it and I get hit with this crazy smell of diesel. And I was like, oh man, the diesel's coming out of that, but it shouldn't smell. So I go over and it's dripping out of the bottom. I'm like, oh man, I immediately got this, this piece of equipment is outside my experience. Why is it leaking? Who am I to think that I understand this piece of equipment? Why did I buy this? Why is it leaking? Now I got to get underneath it. I'm going to smell like diesel fuel for a week. Does it even work anymore? Did I waste my money? These are all the things that went through my head instantly. And it basically you have no business owning something that's so big and beyond your experience. And, but then this morning I woke up and I'm like, okay, diesel's leaking out of a crack somewhere in a hose. I just got to find the crack and patch it. That's all it really is. But my first initial response was oh, this is what happens when you buy something outside your experience level or your comfort level. You get hit in because I used it to help Jacob. My buddy Jacob bought a piece of property down the road and we drove the backhoe down there to pull up some stumps last weekend. And so when I moved it, I put it back closer to the edge of the property, which is why it was out of place. Anyway, now I got to go in and figure out why it's leaking diesel fuel. And I don't know why, but it was nighttime last night. And then all I wanted to do was try and figure it out last night. But instead I said, forget it. I'll deal with it in the daytime when I actually have nothing else important to do, because I don't need it right away. It's something I could fix later on. But I had that initial reaction of who am I to think I understand what I'm doing with this thing? That was one of the first things. And then I didn't realize we were going to talk about this today, but I had that initial reaction of just stay in your lane. Who do you think you are to have such a complicated piece of equipment in your disposal? You don't know what you're doing. You're not Andrew Camarada. What's going on with you?
I feel the same way about lots of stuff that I would just the Bridgeport is that.
Right. I remember you were very vocal about that when you first got it.
But I still feel that way. And I've had it for a year.
Me too.
And a half or something.
I've had mine for 6 years. I feel the same way.
Every time I touch that thing or even go near it, I'm like, I have no business here doing it. I want to learn it and everything, but there's no I don't know what the path is to understanding that thing. Right. So I don't know. And people will have suggestions, just make this thing and you'll get to, I get that. But I don't know what the path is to actually feeling confident with that tool, because I won't use it enough to be, on a regular basis.
It's just like driving a car. The more often you would use it, the better you get at it. That's it.
Right. But to use it, you have to, you kind of have to use it wrong for a while. And I'm physically afraid of that machine. And so using it wrong has a different effect than using a coping saw wrong. You know what I mean? It's a different thing. And so I don't know. I'm really hesitant to ever do anything with the Bridgeport on screen, because I feel like I am not the person that should be doing that. Not because I'm not capable.
Right.
I'm just not capable yet. And I feel like I should become capable off screen with something that's dangerous and something that's big and scary. And I don't know. So I have that same feeling in regard to the Bridgeport. David, do you have? Is there a certain thing that makes you feel this way?
No, but I remember even going back to when I was a kid, when and somebody would have you seen such and such movie, and I would just say yes, just to not feel dumb, and I would say yes all the time, and then I would get stuck in this conversation about. And I was just oh, I don't remember that part. I'm like, dude, that's the main part of the movie. And so even,
but they go back to the future. Yeah, I don't remember that part. I don't know
right. I'm not so sure where I feel that now. It's more of a, it's not really at home or a camera thing. 'Cause, like you mentioned, I can say this is a thing that I'm learning. I gathered all this information. Now we're making a video. Let's learn together. It's more of an in-person thing. It's I'm kind of a shy and easily intimidated person in real life. And so now, I'll be at an event and there's this person who's really good at what they do. And don't even feel worthy of talking to them. That's just, I think it's a combination of always going back to a kid, not trying to feel dumb, and also just being a shy person in public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny. Now I'm thinking, I remember that because Dave, remember you brought me the laser cutter over to Zanesville, Ohio a few years back. And I was hanging out at the open house at John Saunders Machine Works. And all those guys are computer machinists, if not practical machinists, just regular, traditional machinists. And they understand a thousandth of an inch and, very well and all that stuff. And I totally felt like an imposter there. But a lot of people were like, hey, I love your practical approach to just figuring it out. So people did make me feel comfortable. But being there and people are going, oh, man, I love you. I'm like, you guys are like the creme de la creme of machining and welding and everything. I'm just here to learn from you guys. And so I certainly felt like an imposter. And then, I got to meet Mr. Pete and then A-Bomb and these guys that are my heroes in the machining world. And, and then they gave me accolades. I was like, no, this isn't about me. I mean, you guys are You guys are teaching me. So I remember feeling that pretty heavily that weekend. It was an open house and all the YouTube machinists were all there. It was a great experience. I'm really glad that I got to meet all those people. But, it just keep a certain humility and just keep your eyes open and just continue to want to learn, I think is important. Know your place. And, a lot of people, they might feel that imposter syndrome and I don't know, maybe take advantage of like the, hiding behind it in a way. I don't know if I have my thoughts collected, but the idea of like, faking it, super faking it. I guess people can smell it if you super faking it, but maybe those people don't feel imposter syndrome. Maybe
or just own it. I think like just own it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that was going to be what I was going to say is owning it takes some of the fear and the kind of power out of it. If you're feeling that way and you're in front of somebody and you're just quiet about it, that fear is all inside you and it's going to affect everything that you say, everything that you do. It's going to stop you from trying things. But if you own it and you just say like, I don't know what I'm doing here, usually people are willing to help. People are willing to step in. If they have knowledge that can fill a gap, they usually want to share it, right?
Yeah, most people are very helpful.
I mean, if you think about yourself, the knowledge that you have about any subject, hopefully you wouldn't be the type of person that would like look at somebody else who didn't have that knowledge and be like, what a dummy. Like, I'm not going to help them because they don't know something I know. Like, if that's your attitude, you have the problem. So if you have knowledge to share with somebody, you would probably be happy to do it. And so you got to kind of look at both sides of the situation there. If you are missing knowledge, there's probably somebody out there who's more than happy to help share that. And that feeling is just fear. It's something you can put out and kind of take the power out of that fear. I think, and I think just in general, exploring things and going into stuff, not with I can do this attitude, but I wonder what this is about, or how can I learn more about it, or who can guide me with to get where I want to be attitude. That goes a long way,
Yeah.
I think for us, for me specifically on video, trying to be really clear that I don't see myself as an authority on anything. And one time, I'm calling him out a little bit, but not in a bad way. One time I was talking to Ben Ueda on the phone, and like years and years ago, and he made some comment about how he was like, yeah, sometimes you have like kind of a G. Willikers thing going on in the way that you talk to people, and like in a video. And he was saying it in a joking way, like I don't know. But the way I took that was that I try my best not to sound like I'm authoritative, like I have the answer, like I'm willing to be wide-eyed and trying to figure out how to learn something. And so I didn't take that as an insult. I took it as, that's exactly what I want to be. I don't want to be the person who's standing on high and telling everybody how to do things. And so I think, just having that attitude, that kind of wide-eyed, I'm looking to learn attitude towards most things, will help combat the feeling of, I don't know it, therefore I'm faking it, So.
Yeah. Well, there's always
same thing you said more concisely.
There's a lot of times people are like, wow, how did you learn how to do this? And I was like, I've never done this, but I've done these 5 other things that I have experience with. And it's just a reapplication of hand-eye coordination to something different. And that's really what it is. And, the really complicated way of learning that is doing clay. I just recently did the soap clay dish, which I kept it super simple because I've never done anything like that. And I just applied my woodworking skills to making it out of clay. And I did an okay job. It's nothing complicated. It's completely simple. It's like basically first day clay making thing. But for me, it was first day clay making thing. It was really like my second or third day because I've done a few things. But a lot of people appreciated the simplicity of the approach and that I didn't overcomplicate it and I didn't try and do something crazy. I don't have the skill set to do. What's that?
Yeah, I did. I mean, in that, I watched that the other day, and the thing I thought was really cool about it was that it was so simple, yet it didn't look like a 5-year-old made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because you just used a razor knife and flat edges, like to be able to trim the top of it to get the sides flat. just that little thing is like, oh, you can use scrap wood and a razor knife to trim clay. There you go. Piece of knowledge acquired. And now
that was me just applying my regular, what I do to that. That was me using a router template to router the precise shape of something. Instead, I use the wood and just a clay scraper, and again, like I always try and figure out how I can apply. This is just maker skills. Just try and figure out what you're good at and see how you could utilize these various muscle memory things for something that would be different. And then did you guys happen to see on Instagram a couple of days ago, I posted this incredible Japanese clay artist made a teapot with just hand working it with a couple of tools and a small little rotary table that he turned by hand. Unbelievable. Like 100 years worth of experience in this guy's video. Unbelievable. He just, with like a piece of like a wooden mallet and like an X-Acto style knife and a little turn thing, he made the most incredibly beautiful pot. Obviously, the guy's got a million years of experience. Understand the material 100%. But just watching that one video, now next time I approach it, I'm going to try and implement some of the things I watched him do. Obviously, he's got hundreds of years of muscle memory behind his ability. I would need to practice it, but just some really, really interesting techniques that he did. I have to find it and send it to you guys.
Well, any other thoughts about this? I mean, I think it's something everybody deals with in some way, whether they want to admit it or not, in different ways, but any other thoughts?
No, that's it. I just think, keep a certain sense of humility and then also just try and learn. Like I said, I feel a little annoyed that my tractor's leaking diesel. And like I said, I'm outside my comfort zone with getting up underneath there and getting diesel all over me. But this is why I bought this thing, is to learn these. I knew buying that it was going to be up against some serious, complicated know-how. And I was willing to take that chance. And right now I'm being put to the test. Why is it leaking? I just got to find that crack in the hose. The machine was put to stress the other day when I used it for about an hour. And every time I take that machine out, there's going to be something that goes, you know what? I'm giving up. You got to fix me. It's just one of those things, because there's 100 of those. You know what? I think today's the day I'm done. And then I got to get under there and figure out what that is and why it is and then fix it. I just knew that. And, that's the same way with anything. Same way with any brand new tools, the same way.
Yeah. Bob, you said something earlier that I identify with. And I don't know if this is your phrase or if it came from somewhere else, but you said forever learner, and like that's who I am. I'm a forever learner, and I'm going to reuse that phrase. Yeah.
I think just to reiterate that what you just said, Jimmy, about the forever learner thing, the Karmagia is I knew that it was going to be a deep hole to climb into. And as I've started climbing into that hole, I realized that there's another hole at the bottom of that hole. And then when I went into that one, there's another hole at the bottom of that hole. And it's just going to keep going and metaphor. Keep going. And it's weird that I'm not scared of that.
Yeah.
I think this has been the first big thing where I've jumped in and not been afraid of it. I can't break it any more than it's already broken. The thing is literally spread out across an entire barn right now. I can't break it any more than it's already broken.
The other day I went into the barn and I go to the other Cadillac and there's a huge puddle underneath it. I'm like, okay, I guess the radiator wants to be fixed faster than I wanted to fix it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand what you're telling me. Okay.
But I think there's practice in that. In regard to the learning part, in regard to the imposter syndrome, feeling inadequate or feeling like you're a faker or whatever, there's learning, there's practice in taking something that is going to continue to break, like you're talking about, Jimmy, with the diesel thing. Like, it's going to keep breaking, which is going to force you to keep learning how to fix it, which is going to force you to always be in a position of not knowing something.
Right.
That's practice. And then that takes away some of the,
comfortability.
If you're only in dangerous situations every once in a while, they feel like more dangerous,
right?
Or scary situations or whatever. So,
right.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that I have this long-term thing that is just going to get worse until it gets better.
And then Bob, you go to a car show or you go to like cruise night at the local McDonald's and you see like a car McGee and you think to yourself, how did he get here? How did he do this? I don't understand what he went through. He must not have any family or anybody to talk to. How did he get here?
Right.
Because I see that when I see like a truck that's like in perfect condition at cruise night, I'm like, how did he, didn't he leave one rust spot on it? There's not even like a dog hair on the seat. Like, how do you do this?
Well, so my defense mechanism for that, a few weeks back or months ago, there was a cruise night in town. I think I told you guys about it, where there were just tons of old cars. And I'm walking through this park where there's just like all these old cars. All next to them is a 70-year-old man. And I'm like, well, he's been working on that thing for 30 years, or he's got $1 billion and just paid somebody to restore that car. Total defense mechanism for me thinking like somebody else wasn't willing to do the work to get to that thing. Yeah, they were. Like, right. I can do that. I mean, it may take me 30 years. It may take me $1 billion, but I can get there, So, yeah, I'm with you. And I still, thinking ahead to things like paint and the final stages of, which is way down the road. But I'm like, man, I'm going to put all this work in and I'm going to get this thing painted. And there's going to be like a fingerprint somewhere that I won't be able to get rid of. And there's going to be a little spot that's too thin on the, whatever. So
one more point that you reminded me. When I was going to paint the blue truck in the wintertime, and me and Taylor went to the auto bodies place. She wanted to go because she wants to learn how to paint her pieces of furniture with the complicated paint. Used to be able to get lacquer paint and just lacquer thinner, and you thin it till it works, and then you pour it, and then it dries. You spray it, and it dries. Now there's reducer, there's hardener, there's catalyst. And I went into the guy and just said, look, I used to paint cars with lacquer. I know they don't have that anymore. I was like, what do I need to do? Just give me the basics. I said, I understand how to make things, and I could figure it out. I said, just tell me what I need to know as somebody that had experience, but not with the new materials. And he just pulled out a sheet because he does it 50 times a day. He pulled out like a DuPont sheet, and with a highlighter, he's like, read this, only reduce here, add this here, and clean up with this. And he went, bump, 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 puts them all in front of me. He goes, there you go. I was like, that's it. Thank you. You just demystified the process for me. It took him about 5 minutes to put all the materials in front of me. This DuPont tech sheet, which I kept, and I kept referring to it. And that's it. I went in there with no ego. I just went and I said, look, I used to know how to paint. Now I don't know how to paint because the technology's changed. I said, can you just give me like a 5-minute briefing? And the guy did. And it was exactly what I needed. And that was the fear I had a hard time getting over. And, Taylor was next to me and she listened to it. And now she wants to paint stuff. She wants to learn how to use that paint. So she's going to go in there and get some colors for her. Sometimes it just takes getting over that fear of just looking stupid.
I think it's the same thing we talked about before, like going into a metal yard. You go in and you're like, at least for me, I was like, I have no idea what I'm looking for. And I'm going to look like an idiot who doesn't know the right kind of metal to ask for. And they're super cool and super helpful. And they're willing to fill that knowledge gap that you don't have.
Yeah. So you just have to let them know that you're an idiot right away.
That's right. Yeah, own it. You own it. And then it goes away.
I'm an idiot.
Hi, I'm an idiot. Can you help me? So we don't typically ask for feedback, not for any particular reason, but I think this is a really good time to ask for feedback from you about imposter syndrome. I don't know, whatever feedback you have. Do you think we hit it? Are we missing something? What do you feel it in? How do you get over it? I mean, we all still feel it, so I think tips to get over it would be awesome.
Yeah.
Let us know on Twitter at Making It Podcast. That's what our handle is, right? I think we use Twitter too often. Yeah, Making a Podcast. Or if you're one of the Patreon supporters, you can let us know there because we do get those messages for sure.
And we do share them around.
Yeah. They all come in through my email and I pass them along to the guys. But speaking of Patreon, I like that segue. That's really good. If you are a supporter on Patreon, you get the after show, which we're going to record right after this. And if you're not a supporter on Patreon, you could be. And you do that by going to patreon.com/making it. We are really grateful. If you don't want to help out on Patreon, totally cool. We're just glad that you're listening. If you leave us a review, apparently that really helps like get the show in front of other people. Like we talked about a few weeks ago, we don't really pay attention to like listen numbers or anything, but obviously getting it in front of more people would be better. So share it around, leave a review if you want to. That'd be cool. Or just listen. It's
a couple weeks ago, I went back and read some of the iTunes reviews. I probably do it like once a year. And the reviews are phenomenal. They're really, really good. So if you want to feel good about yourself, go read the iTunes reviews for a few minutes.
I've never thought of that sentence. If you want to feel good about yourself, go read the reviews of something you do.
Right. It's not like YouTube comments for sure.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I might give it a shot then. Big thanks to our top supporters over on Patreon, though. Odin Leather Goods, Corey from Make Shape Create, Rich at Lowen Designs, Blondie Hacks, Fun Kiss Artistic Creations, You Can Make This Too, Chad from Mancrafting, Works by Solo, Albert's Woodworks, and Corey Ward. But there's a bunch of other people like Joshua Barber, who are also supporters that we are grateful for. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Over there. It does really mean a lot. So thank you for that. I don't have anything to recommend, so I'm just going to go ahead and cross myself off that list for today because, like I said earlier,
you know what?
I don't.
One more thing before I give my recommendation, which everybody's already seen, is speaking of the iTunes reviews, I remember when I was looking at them a few weeks ago, I'm like, I bet there's going to be a bunch of reviews where like this podcast would be better without David. And I was like, well, looking for those like, I'm not looking for that reaction.
Stop it.
I'm over exaggerating. Okay. But I was looking for those comments. Like there's going to be somebody there who doesn't want me on the pod. No, there wasn't. They were all good. I'm like, man, we have some good listeners. So anyway.
Well, yeah, I agree. But just to be fair, I guarantee you there's somebody listening right now who's like, man, I wish the show didn't have David. And there's somebody else who said, I wish the show didn't have Bob. And there's somebody else who said, I wish the show didn't have Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy talks
Absolutely.
too much.
And that's okay. Asshole. Because the three of us get to decide who's on the show.
That's right.
Anyway, but thanks for the reviews. That's awesome to hear. I'm glad they're good.
Yes.
So my pick is, again, Smarter Every Day, but Destin did a great video on how carburetors are made. He went to the Holly factory.
Yeah, that was great.
I think it's in Kentucky, and it is
Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Yeah, it is so cool. Like I have a limited knowledge about carburetors, and I'm working on small engine stuff, and I can build the entire engine. But I don't do anything with the carburetor. I just buy a new carburetor and it's got the right jetting in there for what I need. And he made a video a couple months ago about how carburetors work, and he made one with like a clear plexiglass front so you can see what
amazing.
It does. And it really like cleared everything up. And then this is a great follow-up where he tours the Holly factory, and it was just so cool because carburetors, they're simple, but yet super complex.
It's unbelievable how he made that carburetor work with just clear plastic. And then you go to the Holly carburetor, it's like, well, what's that for? Oh, that's for jetting. Oh, what's that for? Oh, that's for vent. What's that for? Like, I couldn't really give exact examples, but the idea how these carburetors just keep getting more and more and more complicated, it's crazy. I have a Holly carburetor on the truck that I've just elected to fix up. And it's like they make them too cool, so it looks kind of like a crown, so when you open up the engine compartment, you're like, at cruise night, I'm like, hey, he's got a Holly carburetor on his, he knows his business when I don't know anything. Yep. I was going to suggest, I'm actually recording this Saturday with Jeff Fader over at the Full Blast podcast, so my episode will be out I don't know. We haven't even recorded it yet, so I don't know when he'll put it out, but it'll probably be a couple of weeks after this weekend. But go check out the Full Blast podcast. It's a little bit blacksmith knife centric, but he does interview pretty much mostly anybody that he finds interesting in the maker business. And Jeff's very funny. He's a cynical New Yorker like me, so I think we'll have a great conversation this weekend. But he's very inspired by some of the I hate to use this term, but it's the only term I can think of right now. Shock jock guys like Howard Stern and Opie and Anthony, and he's inspired by those guys. His interview style is a little loose and fun, and he really does good work as an interviewer and a podcast host. So check out Jeff Fader's Full Blast podcast, and a lot of the people we all know have been on there.
Cool. I lied. I do have a pick. Totally forgot. But it's not a video. I've been listening to another audiobook, and I'm going to tell you the correct name of it. I'm stalling so that I can get Audible pulled up. It is Chip Gaines from... Oh, man. So I'm going to interrupt myself because Skype added these dumb Space Jam animations. And so while I'm talking, they're just playing Space Jam animations on screen. I don't know. That's really weird. Anyway, this book is called No Pain, No Gains. It's Chip Gaines from Fixer Upper. And he's had this, I think this is his second book. The first one I really enjoyed. And this one's all about building a network, but not like a social network, a network of knowledge and people that you believe in and can kind of be guides for you throughout life and stuff. And it's just, he writes from just a very like conversational, easy place to listen to. And he reads the books as well. But I really enjoyed his first one, and this one I'm a few chapters in, and I'm really liking it. So
I'll just put it on my wish list.
I think it's got some good stuff. That's it.
All right.
The end.
All right.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Let us know what you think about imposter syndrome, and we'll catch you next time.
All right.
Thank you.
Love you. Bye.
I love you too, by the way.